Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney's landmark visit to Beijing represents far more than economic pragmatism. It constitutes a calculated geopolitical snub to Donald Trump's resurgent American hegemony, signaling Ottawa's refusal to remain Washington's compliant vassal in an era of imperial overreach. On its face, Carney's trip, the first by a Canadian leader since 2017, targets concrete trade wins in sectors critical to Canadian prosperity: energy, agriculture, technology, and resources. Canada's 67% export dependence on the United States has become a strategic vulnerability, particularly with Trump's unilateral tariff threats and unpredictable tariff announcements having already battered key industries. The Huawei dispute that froze bilateral relations for nearly a decade now dissolves as Carney pursues tariff reductions on Canadian pork, canola, seafood, and aluminum exports to China's hungry markets. Yet beneath this ostensibly pragmatic trade agenda lies a deeper assertion: Canada will not permit Washington to dictate its foreign policy or constrain its economic sovereignty. Seems like Trump's so-called Don Roe Doctrine, his rebranding of the Monroe Doctrine as an explicitly imperial framework diverged from international law, has terrified Ottawa. Trump's veiled threats toward Greenland, coupled with his bizarre campaigns to absorb Canada as the 51st state, have convinced Canada's leadership that the traditional security assumptions of the 19th century no longer hold. When Trump captured Venezuela's president and deployed American naval forces to destroy alleged narco-terrorist speedboats in international waters, actions that legal experts and many leaders across the globe condemned as violations of international law, Canada's muted response revealed the paralysis induced by Trump's unpredictability. Carney's Beijing visit signals a refusal to remain cowering before Washington's imperial appetites. By diversifying trade relationships and restoring dialogue with China, Europe, and South Korea, Canada announces it will pursue autonomous foreign policy even as Trump threatens economic coercion and territorial demands. A genuinely stable Canada-China partnership represents Washington's worst strategic nightmare. Currently, even with tariffs, 2/3 of Canadian exports flow southward, rendering Ottawa hostage to American tariff whims. But sustained rapprochement with Beijing could eventually redirect commodity flows and manufacturing partnerships away from the United States, eroding American leverage over North American supply chains and Arctic strategy. More critically, a Canada-China axis fractures Trump's hemispheric unity. The original Monroe Doctrine warned European powers away from the Americas. Trump's version demands American hegemony over all Western Hemisphere affairs. A Canada genuinely entangled with Beijing contradicts this vision, creating a counterweight to American dominance precisely in North America's backyard. What Carney cannot openly state but clearly understands is that Trump's imperial ambitions have forced Canada into Beijing's arms by default. Trump has destroyed the reliability of the American alliance through his threats and unpredictability. In choosing to engage China while strengthening ties with India, Europe, and South Korea, Carney articulates a continental position. Canada will hedge its bets rather than submit to Trump's mercurial dominion. If this diversification succeeds, America's traditional sphere of influence contracts. Washington loses not just economic leverage, but political influence over its historic neighbor. The price of Trump's imperial hubris.